and welcome into another episode of Cheerful by Choice. I'm so excited that you're here today. We have a fantastic special guest with Rachel Strivelli today, and I'm so excited to get with her. But first, I want to share with you a little bit of my stories. My favorite thing is to start with a story and then share other people's stories, and we can all connect and have different stories, but so much in common, so much the same. And it's helpful to build a community that way. And I hope that all of my listeners will reach out and find what you have in common with each other. So when I had my quadruplets and I was on bed rest and they were just babies, I had my older two boys. So there's 6 kids under 4. And I'm like, totally crazy, right? It's just crazy. And I lost who I was because I believed that I became just a mom instead of adding that experience on and layering it on to who I was, who I am, instead of becoming that mom. It was added to me. And so we have these core identities that sometimes get lost in just all the experiences of life. And one of Rachel's specialties is bringing us back to who we really are at the center, who we are, not just who we look like or what we experience. And who's like, people look at me and go, oh, you're the lady with all those kids. You had, but no, I'm Lydia. And I also have all these kids, right? And so we want to reach down inside, pull out and brighten that inner spirit, that inner sparkle, and magnify just how awesome and amazing we are. And so today we're going to visit with Rachel Strivelli. Welcome on, Rachel. I'm so excited for you to help us out with this today. Thanks for being here.
Ooh, thank you, Lydia. I'm so excited. And I didn't know that you had 4 quadruplets. And already I'm in awe of you, and you're making me feel so good. One, because I don't know if I could handle 4. I'm sure you hear that all the time. And I just think she's still here and kicking, so rock on.
Well, we never know what we can handle until we actually do it. And I
That's
wouldn't
true.
say that I was doing very good for a long time. Like I said, I got really depressed. I was just the mom. I lost my identity. And people, even when I was at my lowest, people would look at me and go, wow, you walk on water. And I'm like, no, I'm human. And we all have something that we're dealing with. Mine is just really, really obvious.
Right. Yes. Well, and thank you so much for sharing that, because it's so true. We all have something we're dealing with. And I connect to your story in a few ways. I started my business a few years ago when my daughter, I became a stay-at-home mom when she was born. And that was my whole plan. It's going to be a crafter and a stay-at-home mom and a homesteader. And I was so pumped for it. But then a few months into it, it just didn't feel right. It wasn't what I thought it would be. I was having a similar experience, even though just with one child, like you're saying, I felt like I wasn't really myself anymore. And my mom had just passed away as well. So it's like new mom without your mom. And I was kind of counting on like her wisdom being part of my whole like support team and that whole experience of I'm a mom and then my mom is the grandma. And so it was a really challenging point in my life. I know my husband went through a lot just being supportive of me while I was going through my various, I don't even know what to call it, transmutations and agony and trials and tribulations.
Agony.
Yeah.
That's a good word for it.
Yeah, but writing and creativity and spending time in my garden. And also I started a business as my way of being like, I need something that's just for me, that I get a lot of joy out of, and where I'm contributing in a way where I'm not a mom and I'm using my talents and all of that. So it's like I started doing a few things to really get back to myself and reclaim myself. And that's the short story.
I'm so glad that your husband was able to deal with all of that. I think sometimes we get wrapped up in the mom and the postpartum and all the other stuff that women are doing. Women need more what's the word? More rights isn't the right word, but more. Women just
Yeah.
need more.
Oh yeah, I like that.
And we forget that the men are there struggling too. And
Mm-hmm.
everyone in our support group, if they truly are our support group, they're struggling along with us.
Right.
So,
Yes.
so that's
Yes,
beautiful.
it
Go ahead.
is. Oh, I was just thinking one of the pivotal moments, because in some ways, I kind of felt like I was carrying this burden alone, even though he knew what was going on.
Uh-huh.
But one day he said to me something like, I don't even know if I like who you are anymore. And he didn't say it to be mean. He was really just trying to let me know, like, you've changed so much and you're so angry and sad that I have a hard time being around you. And it was a huge wake up call because it was like, even though I knew I was struggling, it really woke me up to, wow, it's not just me and probably my relationship with my kid, but my relationship with my husband too. And so then that's when I was like, okay, I got to do something about this. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and ironically, well, I don't really know if it's ironic, but whatever. I had this medical condition, you could say, that's not very well known. So I feel like since we're a podcast, I should share just a tiny bit about it. It's called DMER, dysmorphic milk ejection reflux. It has almost the same symptoms as postpartum depression, but it's related to the hormones of breastfeeding.
Oh,
And
wow. I haven't heard of that yet.
yeah, it's so I didn't know I had it, but all I knew with my daughter was she stopped breastfeeding, like she didn't want to nurse anymore around 9 months. And I was a little bit shocked because in my mind, I'm like, it fit with my whole paradigm of like, I'm the natural mom and we grow organic food and I breastfeed you and this is the whole picture. And then she stopped wanting to do that. And I was like, hey, little baby, like, this is my plan.
Right. Yeah. Babies
You know,
are supposed to make the decisions like
I
that.
know. Kids are so good about changing our plans, I feel like. I'm sure with quadruplets, you're like, okay,
Oh, it's
plan
like,
change.
plan, what's a plan? I actually went through a little bit of why would I even try to plan? I was so depressed. I was like, nothing ever works. Oh, but
Oh
yeah,
my
so go on.
God.
She stopped
Yeah,
breastfeeding.
so she stopped breastfeeding. And then, so for me, within 3 days, the hormones like flipped over. So my body was like, oh, stop producing milk. And in 3 days, I was the happiest I had been in, I don't even know, definitely that whole postpartum period. But I felt like I was the happiest I had been in months. And I also suffer from seasonal affective disorder. So for me, it felt like that same type of thing of as soon as springtime hits and I'm so
Mm-hmm.
joyous. And so I started telling everyone I knew, I don't know what happened. I feel like my daughter just gave me the best gift that I didn't even know that I needed or wanted. And I feel amazing. And all of my friends and all the women I knew, no one else was having that experience. In fact, a lot of people had the opposite experience. They stopped breastfeeding. And it's a little bit of like an emotional letdown, if you will, of like,
Right.
oh, now we don't have that connection. I don't have I think it's the oxytocin and the other hormones
Uh-huh.
that make you feel connected when you're breastfeeding. And so it was so interesting to me, this contrast. And one of my friends is a nurse and she found an article about this condition and sent it to me. And I just thought, oh my gosh, I had this thing that hardly anyone knows about that was totally shifting chemically my ability to be happy and to feel good about life. And so with my second child, he was born 5 years later. So the women who were my birth workers, like midwives and nurses and whatnot, we all talked about this before he was born. Hey, I have this condition. They knew about it. So I guess education is growing, at least in that community. And same thing, it's almost like a flip switch. 3 days after the baby was born, all the hormones hit me. I couldn't sleep at night. I would like be, even when the baby was sleeping, my adrenaline and all the hormones were, it was not pleasant. And then within a few months again, I said, you know what, this time I'm going to choose to stop breastfeeding because my happiness is more important than some idea that I have, and the baby will be fine on formula. So I almost wonder if I'm going on a tangent here, but I'm sure we'll come back to
Oh,
some other location with
no,
this.
it's great because the whole podcast is about choosing to be cheerful, making those choices.
Mm-hmm.
And it is a choice that we can make changes to affect our happiness, if it's chemically based or otherwise. There are things that we can do to increase our happiness, and everyone is happier when we're happier.
Yes, that's so true.
If we're not taking care of us, and this is what I learned so much when our kids were little, and I had this like light switch moment similar. I was like, oh, I could do something different.
Yeah.
And I changed, and the kids were happier. The house was cleaner. Everything else was just poof, magically transformed because I decided to put me first. And it wasn't like I'm the most important person in the world. It was just, I'm taking care of me so that I can take care of everything else a little bit better. And I would only do like 5 or 10 minutes of me time. I mean, it's kind of crazy. Even fitting in 5 minutes a day was miraculous. It's changed so much.
Yeah.
And so this is right. It's not a tangent. This is just great. We look going where we go, because whoever's gonna listen is gonna get what they need out of it.
Yes. And the other thing I think that probably happened for you, you can tell me if this is the case, but that I know happened for me is, once I made that choice, not only was I happier, but I saw things that I could appreciate that I couldn't have appreciated before with the other path I was on. For example, because I wasn't breastfeeding my son, my husband could get up with him in the night and give him formula. I could leave for longer periods of time, and his grandparents, when we visited them, could hold him. All kinds of different people could feed the baby. I'm tuning into your babies here. And yes, I know some people pump and then other people can still feed breast milk. That didn't really work for me. But it just, all of a sudden I saw, wow, it's not just benefiting me. Everyone else in the family gets to chip in a way where they get to connect with the baby in this way. And I just started seeing all of the moments of delight that I wouldn't have had if I wouldn't have made that choice. And it was almost, not that I was selfishly being like, it's my baby and no one can touch him, but it opened up. So it was almost like there was more love too. And this whole community feeling that just felt so incredible. And it was extra reinforcement for me. Yes, making the right choice for me not only benefited me, but everyone around me benefited too.
Yes. And I had a little bit of overwhelm in my experience, and I think most moms do. I think that's a really big part of the afterbirth postpartum time frame, and sometimes it lasts for a long time. And I think it's because we are overwhelmed and we're trying to do it all ourselves.
Yes.
And so letting other people, especially the dads, the men, really, I think we don't give them enough credit. They want to help a lot more than society typically thinks that they do. And I remember with my first son, I didn't have all of the other kids yet. First baby, just one. And I couldn't get him to nurse. He wouldn't latch on. And in the hospital, I had an experience that I think kind of led to him not being able to eat later. But anyway, I was so frustrated, and I still feel a little twinge of guilt. I've tried to heal it so much, but I had like that pillow around my belly, and I was trying to nurse him, and he wouldn't do it. And I kind of like threw him down like this far, is like so frustrated, like yelling at him, "Why won't you eat? What's your problem?"
Yes.
My husband comes around and goes, "He's getting a bottle, and you're going to bed." I was like, I was so mad. mad at him for doing that. But, you know, of course, now looking back, I'm like, he saved me and our baby. He like totally saved
Yes.
his life.
Yes.
And I don't know why we get in our head that we have to do it a certain way and we can't let other people participate.
Yes, I
And
know.
let's extend that to goals, business,
Right.
running,
Oh, yes. This is
anything.
big.
There's,
Oh, I'm feeling that. I'm glad you're
yeah.
expanding this.
So if we think we have to do everything ourselves, are we just putting on that exterior experience and trying to make it our identity instead of an experience that we can move through and like our circle, like our personal space gets bigger. I think with every experience it expands, and other people are having their experiences. We can share the same space through an experience, and we don't have to do it alone. It can be a really beautiful, life-saving kind of thing.
Yes, that is so true. And I'm thinking, so my background is in organic agriculture and spending a lot of time out in nature, being an environmental educator. And what you're saying also, sometimes when I'm looking at how do I want to live my life, or where am I going to find truth and wisdom? And I value religious and spiritual scripture. So I look to those too. But what I also look to is the natural world, because I think that's not, we change it somewhat, but it has its own plan that's working out without us having to do anything. So what can I learn from there? And in my garden or in the forest, if we go outside, it's all working together. Lots of animals, they have their, whatever you want to call it, their colony, their flock, their whatever it is, where they're in a group together. And even one of the biggest things when I started studying organic agriculture, at first I thought, okay, it's just that you don't put pesticides on the plant. That seems like the like basic thing of what it is. But what I learned very quickly was there's so much more to that. It's also about, is the soil healthy? Because there's organisms that live there. Because if it is, they will support the plant. And it's this whole ecosystem all working together. It's not just how do I grow a healthy tomato plant, but how do I care for the soil? And then there's insects, which, you know, if you have the pesticides, you don't have the insects, but they're part of that whole system and they're what makes it work.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I remember we tried to grow a garden when our kids were little.
Yeah.
It was just silly. Too much to do. And at the end of the season, I went out and I was like, well, I guess it's time to clean up all the weeds and everything. And I lifted up this giant pile of weeds. I'm like, there's tomatoes under here. There's a zucchini under here. What the heck? How did this happen? Right? It just couldn't do it, even if I thought I was supposed to grow a garden, but it grew anyway.
Yes, I love that. And yeah, it's so fun to think, yes, some plants need more nurturing, and I see them as they're like an orchid. You got to care for it, talk to it, check upon it, weed it. But zucchini and tomatoes, they're like, oh, you give me a little bit of ground, I'm going to grow. Who cares if anybody pays attention to me?
And my sister this year will be her second year planting a garden. She did so good and so amazing last year. And so I was like, we've moved into a new place and we're like, we don't have a yard. It's so small. And I was like, oh, missing my garden space. But I really don't have time to go out and do a whole garden. I would just plant it and hope that there's something under the weeds every year. And so this year, after my sister's experience actually having a really awesome garden, and I was like, okay, I do have a yard. I just need to figure out how to use it because it's different. Right. And she said, Lydia, don't you dare plant more than one zucchini.
Unless you really like zucchini bread.
Right. And you have a lot of freezer space or something.
Right, I know. A lot of friends who don't have gardens.
Yeah, I think going back to this principles, the eternal
Mhm.
principles. If we plant a seed for a goal that we want, if we plant it properly, we don't necessarily have to nurture it to get
Mhm.
some sort of result from it.
Yes, that's true.
So, what would you suggest? I feel like you have some special insight on how to plant a seed.
Yes. Well, one of the things I've been going through and sharing about recently in my personal life and online is about planting seeds that are subconscious or your soul can work with, kind of like you say, that you're not doing anything about. And I have been playing around with doing this with my dreams. So before I go to sleep, if I'm working on a struggle, I will say a little prayer or say, okay, give me some insight in my dreams, please. And in my experience, it helps if you do this a few times, because if you're not used to working with your dreams, then it's not like you're going to do it and instantly
Mm-hmm.
have an effect, although you could. And I find that I will get insight and information from my dreams that then allows me to move differently in my life, or I'll be inspired by something that happens, or it'll give me a new idea. Oh, maybe I should call so and so and see how she's doing. And then she tells me about this thing that I might want to do. And it's not me trying to make things happen. It's just me, like you say, planting this seed and then waiting and noticing and being receptive and open to what happens next.
Yes, and allowing it. So
Yes.
I've seen if I just plant it and I allow it to come and I'm observant and I notice, like, this is like the whole gardening lesson in my head. I'm seeing this vision.
Yes.
You, if you notice a weed is coming, you go and you move it. You get rid of the
Yes.
weed. And then you don't have to like pick up the whole pile at the end of the year to find out what's there.
Right.
And it would probably be a lot better harvest if I actually
Hmm.
did pay attention to it. But
Right.
there's not a whole lot that you have to do other than pay attention to it, right?
Hmm.
Just paying
Hmm.
attention. What are we paying attention to? Whether we have these negative voices or the positive voices, which one are we giving more attention to?
Yes,
Mm.
I agree. And I know that we were talking earlier before we started recording about I haven't gotten as much sleep in the past few days. And I know if I don't get a lot of sleep, I have a tendency to skew negative in my thinking. So I try
Mhm.
and find ways to refocus it on the positive, because both are options. And I know that I'm happier when I'm having the option that, okay, so for example, this morning, I'm like, okay, didn't get a lot of sleep last night. What do I want my day to look like? And I'm thinking, I don't want to grumble through the day. I'm going to start my day with a playlist that makes me feel happy. And I'm also going to tell myself, I keep on having to recommit to this thought of I'm in a season of life, to use that expression, where my kids need a lot from me. And even though
Mhm.
I would love to just be like a solo person doing my thing 24/7, that is not my reality. And anyway, and
Uh,
and so just recommitting to that and telling, so this morning I told myself, okay, what if I only have two things that I get done today in terms of connecting with you? And then there's one more thing that I said I'm going to do. And I think if I decide I'm only doing two things, I'm going to feel pretty good once they're done. And then maybe I'll do more. Or if I hit this tired slump, maybe I'll just have a relaxing afternoon with my kids and that'll be that. And that's good enough.
yes, good enough because we are good
Hmm.
enough. We don't have to prove
Yes.
anything. I think that's a really big part of being able to choose happy is knowing we're good enough and
Hmm.
everything that we do is going to be good enough. And
Yes.
I love only having a couple of things that this is the one thing I'm going to do today. even if it's, you don't have the capacity to say 2 things.
Right.
There's been a few times in my past where I'm like, I just need a shower. That's the only thing I need today. I need a shower. And then part 2, I'm going to brush my teeth, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. When my daughter was little, I realized first in when she was, let's just say, a few months old, I was planning a lot of things because being with people did feed me, even though I'm an introvert. But I think I was also trying to fill the time because I had a lot of negative emotions and all that stuff I was dealing with that I shared. But if I was with people, it was easy to feel better because I was with other people. But when I was alone with the baby, my mood would tend to dip. And so I realized at one point, I'm planning too much. Somebody else might be able to do the amount of things I'm doing, but I can't. And so I'm only going to plan one thing a day with her. And that's it. I'm not going to do, if we go to a baby music class, that's it. We don't do anything else. That's a plan. If we make a play date with a friend, that's it. And it really, I feel that I know a lot of people who can do a lot more things in terms of fill their life with activities, but for some reason still, even though my children are older, I don't find the quality of my day or my happiness if I plan too much. Like tomorrow, I'm supposed to do 2 things and someone asked me to do a third, which I know I would love this yoga class that a friend asked me to go to, but I'm thinking, I'm already at my max with 2 things. If I had a third, I'm just going to feel like I'm running all around. And at the end of the day, yes, I will have had good experiences. But for me, it's this, I always know I have to leave for the next thing. And so it's, I don't know what it is about me, but I know that I can't commit to too many things because it just frazzles me in a way that I don't really enjoy it. Whereas if it's fewer things, one hike, one yoga class, one crafting afternoon with friends, then that's the thing I look forward to all day, or that's the thing I really can be present for. And if I choose to do something else because I feel inspired or excited, then I go do it. Or I just go home after that and pick up my library books and hang out in the backyard with my kids and check on my garden plants. And so in a lot of ways, I guess, if people or listeners have kind of a slow paced lifestyle or slow living, I definitely feel like I've realized over time that's the way that I'm just more calm as a person and settled and happier.
Yeah, and we're also individually individuals. I mean, we need to not compare to the people who are out there making like so much crazy going on in their lives. I'm on the other side because
You do a lot of
I
things.
have a lot of kids. I have a lot going on. And
Yeah.
they're 16 now. The quads are 16. And our other 2 are 19 and 20. And so there's just a lot of going on. And people are like, oh, they're 16 or they're driving. I'm like, are you crazy? That means I have to teach them how. I can't fit that in my schedule.
Hey, and I'm picturing how many cars will your driveway hold? Not that they each get their own car, but still.
Like, okay, aside from the money part, it's going to have to cost to buy the gas and the car and the insurance. And like, who has enough time to spend 40 hours teaching each person how to drive?
Oh my gosh, that is so funny.
I had a friend once, she's just like, I do not want your life. I cannot, you stress me out just saying hi to you. I'm like, and that's okay. But now I'm totally to a point, but I used to be like, my mom would say, why don't you just take a nap? The babies are down. Why don't you just take a nap? I'm like, no, this is my 5 minutes and I get to do something that's not with the babies,
Yeah.
And so I would go. But I had people helping me sleep. Back to the sleep thing was somebody comes in and when they were little, we had a lot of people helping us, a lot of neighbors and friends and everybody. And so they would come in and be like, what can I help you with? I'm like, I need to sleep. And so I had one sweet friend, she came over, she actually wrapped all my Christmas presents while
Oh,
I slept at
nice.
night. And they would come
Oh,
and they'd take care of the babies when they woke up in the night and stuff like that. And it was like, I needed sleep and then I could get through the day. We had a nanny come for helping, and she was only with us for like 4-ish months because
uh-huh.
she's like, what do you need? I'm like, I need a schedule. I need them to nap on time. Da, 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 da. And
Yes.
when they did, she's like, you don't need me anymore. I was like, you're right. We're pretty cool because we have like this groove going, right?
Yeah.
But it's crazy if we're not in the same groove. Like if one's
Mm-hmm.
napping and somebody else isn't,
Oh,
there's
right.
no there's no synergy to support that
Yes.
kind of crazy. And
Right.
when my oldest got his Eagle Scout award, they do this little interview, and um, then they bring the parents in and we're like, here's your kid and he did so awesome and he's an Eagle Scout now, but first tell us about your mom. What do you think of your mom? I was like, oh, that's an interesting question to ask like a 12, 13-year-old boy, right?
Yeah.
I loved it though, because it like takes it back that you're not doing it alone. And
Mhm.
yeah, you're awesome and you've achieved this cool thing, but you didn't do it alone. And
Right.
his response just kind of surprised me. I was like, oh yeah, that's true. But he said, my mom always makes anything I want happen. Anything.
Aww.
And so like we can kind of be spontaneous and be like, oh, I just really want to go out for ice cream today. We're like, we got 10 minutes, get in the car, let's go.
Oh, fun.
But I'm now at this point where I have 2 days a week, sometimes 3, where I'm like, nothing. I'm
Mhm.
not gonna go work. I'm not gonna anything
Mhm.
else. I need to recover. It's like my sleep time has expanded to I need an extra day off to be
Oh,
able to keep up
yeah.
with everything else. And so
Yes.
even when we're busy, we still need to bring it back down and calm ourselves a little bit.
Mhm. Oh, yes. I so agree. And I think, uh, a little bit, like I said before, of these truths that you can find in religious texts and in the natural world. So it's like
Mhm.
on the seventh day, people rest. And I know, I'm sure it's in other religious traditions too, of taking a day of rest or pausing and recuperating. And if you look at nature, I mean, depending on where you live, there might be 4 months of rest, of everything really toning down and the plants going dormant. And when I've read about burnout, because in 2 of my jobs, I've experienced burnout. And the first job, I didn't know about burnout. It was practically 20 years ago. So it wasn't a thing that people talked about like they do now. Or if they did, I wasn't in the places where people were talking about that. So I
Mhm.
didn't know, I didn't know the signs of it and I didn't know how to get out of it. But I did have a counselor who I worked with while I was burning out and then helping me recover afterwards. And in my recent readings about burnout, one of the things I read is we actually need a lot more rest, not just sleep, but downtime than most
Mm.
people realize. So some of the research says 30 to 40% of your day should be not in like highly productive work activities. And I know some people might be like, well, I don't work all day long. But it's like, well, if you come home or leave your office, wherever it is, or leave your workplace, and then you're emptying the dishwasher and you're peeling potatoes and you're straightening up the living room. Like some of these things are still work, even if it's not that taxing for you. And so ever since I learned about this, I've been looking at my life and trying to say, okay, how can I find more time for restful things or things, to me, writing or playing in the garden. For some people, those might feel like work. For me,
Mhm.
that's almost rest because it's energizing, it's creative, it makes me feel more energy when I'm done as opposed to less energy when I'm done. And so I love doing those things and doodling. And when I'm getting along with my kids, which, you know, there are moments where we do and moments where we don't, but playing with them when we're all laughing and having fun or dancing, those moments energize me. And I keep them in the category of I'm being, even if it's not true rest, I'm filling up my internal resources from those moments and not just
Yes.
expending energy and emotion and resources.
Yes. Oh, and expending, we got to receive some too. We can't just put
Mm-hmm.
it all out. That's like
Mm-hmm.
pushing people away. We have to be willing to receive even just
Yes.
a moment of rest. Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Well, and I think for you, I love that you're taking this time too, because I think you have a podcast, you have children, you have a lot of things that you're feeding energy into, feeding literally. And so in order to keep on showing up as a smiling mom, keep up being cheerful, that rest time helps you restore and revive and rejuvenate.
Yes. And it gives permission to everybody else around me that they can do it
Mm.
too. And, we think, oh, we're doing it for the kids. We have to put on a happy face for the kids. Well, the kids are going to grow up and be another adult. They're going to be a human too. My
Mm-hmm.
husband, he needs permission to have a down moment too. We
Mm-hmm.
can't just maintain the happiness. We have to allow, just the same as our energy needs to have a little rest, our
Mm-hmm.
cheerful attitude, it's okay to take a rest from that too and experience other feelings. And allowing my kids as teenagers, they have some emotions going on,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And to show them how to deal with that and work through it instead of just, no, you just put on a happy face. No, you just deal with it. You just deal with it. You just deal with it. I'm like, well,
Mm-hmm.
there's a point where how do you deal with it if you're not giving it attention? And I think of our emotions sometimes as a child trying to get our
Yes.
attention, and I was
Right.
like, mommy, 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 mommy. And we're just like, I'm busy, I'll come back to you. And they're like pulling on our leg, right? Mommy, 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 mommy,
Yes.
mommy. And I was like, what do you need? Like, hi. Have you ever have those moments where you just say hi? That's all they need, just,
Yes.
well, hi, how are you? I'm good. Okay, that's all.
Ah, that makes
And
me think about last night in the middle of the night when my 3-year-old was waking me up over the course of 2 hours. At one point, he's saying to me, Mom, I want you to read me a book. No, I'm not going to read you books in the middle of the night. We're working with a sleep doctor right now. So it's like there are agreed upon activities he's allowed to do. So he's allowed
uh-huh.
to get up and color. And I set up the coloring books for him last night, but he didn't want to color. He just wanted to talk to me and keep on dogging to me, like that little kid saying hi. And at one point, after I'm saying, no, I'm not going to read you books. I love to read. We can do that tomorrow. And then he started getting all emotional and said, I don't remember his words exactly, but he pretty much said, I want to just have you and me time. He was pretty much asking me for quality time. And I was thinking, oh, that's so sweet. And I'm glad that he was finding a way to
Mhm.
express that need, because that's, I think part of his sleep issues are he has a lot of emotions for a 3-year-old, and there's just a lot in his head, and there's a lot going on, and we're all trying to figure him out.
Right?
And he has a 3-year-old mind with maybe big emotions, so it's a lot to figure out. And but when he told me that, I just relaxed and I thought, oh, okay, you just want to connect. And the more that I let myself feel my emotions, even though I have these challenging nights with him, it allows me to be calmer and be more present. Because sometimes I'm thinking, oh gosh, it's 3 in the morning. I've been up with him for an hour, but I just keep on thinking, okay, but this is where I am. How can I face this and be okay with this? Because if I get angry in the middle of the night, which sometimes I have, he is likely to get angry. He'll have temper
Mhm.
tantrums in the middle of the night. And that's worse than him talking to me in the middle of the night. But I agree with you about I try and process all my emotions, or as many of them as I can, frequently, because otherwise they're not going to go away. They're just keep on being there needing attention. Last week, I had this moment, partly because as with my son and his insomnia, there's a lot going on. There's some things with my daughter, there's life, there's world events, whatever. There was just a lot. And I had one afternoon where maybe I hadn't gotten a lot of sleep too. So that was another element. And I told my husband, I just need 15 minutes. So I went in the bedroom. I couldn't even handle laying on the bed. I laid on the floor because I was like, this is where I am in life right now. I'm laying on the floor. And I had my journal and I said to myself, I'm just going to write down everything I'm upset about so I can get it out. And I didn't write explanations. I just made a list. I filled a whole page with all the things that were upsetting me. And none of them were like somebody cut me off in traffic. Not to say they were all big, but they all were valid in their own way. And when I got to the bottom of the page, I thought, no wonder I feel like laying on the floor.
Yeah.
And asking for a break, because there are all these things that it feels like it keeps on piling up. And even just seeing it on paper and feeling the realization, wow, this is a lot, made me relax and have appreciation and think, yeah, I am dealing with a lot. And so it's almost like it made more sense that I felt sad and overwhelmed and all this other stuff. And I don't know what else I did besides that. I can't remember right now. Maybe I'll remember.
Well, I
as we're
think
talking. But
sometimes
even just
that's the
that
biggest thing, right? To
Yes.
just acknowledge and know what we're up against. So many times I have a lot of people tell me, I don't want to be sad. I don't want to talk about what makes me angry, because then I'm going to focus my attention on that. And I need to focus on being happy. I need to focus on good things, because if I give attention over here, then that's what I'm focusing on, and focus becomes your reality. But the real reality is, if I can say that right, the real reality is that if we don't know what we're up against, we don't know how to fight that fight.
Yes. And I agree. To me, this is the nuance that I'm thinking of YouTube videos, which I'm not knocking YouTube. I mean, there, I have a YouTube channel. I love it, but it's very easy when there's a quick thing that somebody's saying to be like, just focus on this. And it sounds great, but the nuance of it is, if you only are focusing on the good stuff, it's like you say, you're not acknowledging, well, where am I coming from? How am I getting to this goal? What help do I need? What do I need to do with to make all of this happen? And I think a little bit, like I said before, because I keep on realizing, oh, I'm in this stage of life that is not ending anytime soon. I thought when we got the sleep doctor, my problems would be solved. and they weren't. And I had spent a year before that tracking so many variables about my son's life to try and figure out, are any of these things affecting his sleep? I had Googled child sleep stuff so many times. I'd read all the sleep books at the library branch near me. Like, I'd done all these things. And last week he just started therapy. And I think that was one of the things on my list where I thought, oh, finally, this is the solution. Everything will be better. And within a few days, I realized there's not a magic wand that will make, quote unquote, everything better in my life. I am going to have to learn how to live with a child who has his own way of being in the world, his own circadian rhythm, and also live a life that feels good to me, that doesn't feel like I just get by on coffee and fumes, because I physically can't do that. And look, taking the time to really deeply get honest with myself about that is one of the things that I do feel like does let me feel more cheerful, because I'm willing to look at it and figure out the hard reality. Even as I'm saying this is like an evolving thing that keeps on happening, and as he grows, I'm sure things will change.
Right. And we need to give ourselves credit for evolving as we go too. Right. Perfection is not a destination, it's a progress. It's maybe we all want perfection, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
ultimate, yeah, we want it. It's not going to happen.
Right.
It's not going to happen. There are those plans that we make, right? This was my
Mm-hmm.
plan. Whose plan was it to have quadruplets? I don't know.
Yes.
So many things, and other things are health issues or injuries, broken bones. There's so many things that we don't necessarily have control over.
Mm-hmm.
Other people cutting us off in traffic, or
Mm-hmm.
all the little things. But if we're piled up on so many other things, then those little things turn into big things, because there's
Mm-hmm.
just so little space left for us to take on anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Yes.
even like, okay, so if somebody walks into the room and they look at you wrong, or they walk past without saying hi, or they breathe the wrong space at the wrong time, and he's breathing on me. Okay, how full are we of all these other stressors that
Mm-hmm.
that somebody's breathing wrong pushes us over the limit? And
Yes. I'm thinking what you're sharing about makes me think of a practice I do sometimes with my clients and also in my life that has made such a big effect. And it has allowed me to show up and be happier, even though the actual practice isn't necessarily the happiest, most cheerful thing. Is I try and have a regular forgiveness practice. And for me,
oh,
what makes
yes.
it real is I have a journal. One page is gratitude, the next page is forgiveness. And as I'm saying this, I'm like, I need to get that back out again. Because at various phases, I'll do it every day. And then sometimes I get to a really good place. And so I fall off. And I probably could pick it up again. Because here's what I have found. When I'm in a practice of doing this every day, it allows me to forgive myself and forgive everyone else. I mean, I don't know how many times I've written, I forgive my son for waking me up last night for 2 hours. I forgive my husband for not reading my mind.
Oh my goodness, that is a huge one. Everyone should be able to read my mind.
Yeah. And some of the things I write in my forgiveness thing are absurd, just so I can laugh. And then some of the things it's like, I forgive somebody who hurt me. And I will sometimes write that 20 times to get to, and still, trying again to work with that emotion and really release it. But it makes such a difference to release some of those stressors and let go of some of those things, because I almost think it's like we collect grievances if we're not aware of it. And it's hard to feel cheerful when there's 10 minor things that you're annoyed about.
Yes, yes. And I remembering there was one time I was camping out in nature, like the whole
Mm-hmm.
get out there with creation and just
Yes.
let the world be somewhere else and
Mm-hmm.
connect with creation. And I was journaling. I was like, "Rawr," all cringy and ugly. And I was like, "Rawr, rawr, rawr." And it went on, I don't know how for how long, but it seemed like a long time. And then just all of a sudden, oh, I'm okay. It's okay. And I think that we need to give ourselves enough time and enough
Yes.
space. And it doesn't necessarily work instantly, like, oh, I have
Mm-hmm.
a doctor now that ta-da. No, it doesn't work that
Right.
way. We need time to heal, even if
Mm-hmm.
um, we don't see it as we're ill. If we're just
Mm-hmm.
under stress, it's just a stressful day. I had a bad day, whatever. But
Mm-hmm.
that also needs time. And maybe it doesn't need 18 months or 2 years to get over somebody cutting us off in the traffic, but
Right.
it's still, I think we need to be careful not to judge ourselves of,
Mm-hmm.
why am I holding on to this? Why is it so hard to get over? Why am I, if it's not easy, a lot of people sometimes will turn on ourselves and
Mm-hmm.
self-sabotage that. instead of just saying, okay, this is a process. I'm going to write it again. I'm going to try it
Right.
again.
Yes. Well, and I love that you're sharing that. I'm getting chills, which always happens when truth is happening. Truth. Even though we've had some truths already. But one of the things I want to highlight that you said is, and I try and do this, and I remember if I'm working with someone on this, this is advice I give them, is that I don't start with the biggest grievances that are driving me crazy.
Mm-hmm.
One of the last times when I was in a habit of doing the forgiveness, I was not starting with, I forgive my son for being who he is, waking me up all the time. I was too mad about that to go there. So I literally started with all the minor things. And then it's like, I think about decluttering because I follow people who talk about minimalism and decluttering. And a lot of them say, you don't start with the hardest things in your house because it's going to be too emotionally difficult to do that. You start with 5 easy things, and then you think, oh, it was easy to give away the garlic press that I never use. Okay, let me find another thing that's easy. And that's how I work with forgiveness. I start with the easy things. Sometimes then I'm like, okay, am I ready to take 10 seconds to have forgiveness towards my son or towards that person who hurt me? And if I'm not, then maybe I will tomorrow. And then it might only be that I can have forgiveness for them for 10 seconds. And I might need to do that for 3 months until I actually start thinking I can think of them without being mad, or I could talk about them with another person. And then I continuously, I'm taking a deep breath because it feels like it is a process. And I consider myself a kind, as much as I can be, non-judgmental person. And I feel like it's still very much a real thing to do. Of the work of it is a process, but the benefits, I feel like if you want to have so much cheerfulness in your life, to me, this is like the keto diet or the burpees workout for the cheerfulness. It's like, if you want to get some bang for your buck here, if you really want to get in a workout, metaphorically, that's really going to impact your cheerfulness, forgiveness, I feel like, is one of the, I don't want to say it's quick because it can take time, but it is quick in some ways too. But it's like, it's one of the quickest, most powerful ways to get there.
Oh, it's definitely one of the most powerful ways. And as we're talking about this, I'm remembering some of my clients where we suppress those things. We don't want to look at the negative. We want to focus on the positive. And it's just, we don't even know what it is until we start taking off these littler, easier things and get down the layers. And then all of a sudden, holy cow, under this pile of dishes, there's also a grimy counter.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
It's spring cleaning, and we've been trying to do it a little bit more this year than we have in the past.
Me too. I have this goal. It's maybe a silly goal, but for someone to come in and say, wow, you don't have a lot of stuff. I realize that's a goal I want to have, because we actually don't have a lot of stuff, but it feels like it's too much for me still. And so I'm like, all right, we got to take this down 10 or 25%. And yet I feel like once we're there, it's going to feel a little bit empty, to use one word, but empty in a good way. I think it's going to feel light and airy and maybe easy to clean. That's what I'm hoping.
Well, I decided that I was going to have one drawer, one cupboard that had nothing in it. Ooh, just so that I could be like, wow, I have a space. You know, we want to have a Zen zone in the house, or like somewhere that we can go to just meditate or be peaceful, or, you know, and sometimes it's just closing the door in the car and not going anywhere for a minute to just be alone. Or that, what if I expanded that? I'm all about expanding things today. What if I expand that idea to my home, and I have one empty spot? But then I've noticed, and I think this reflects in our mental capacities and everything too. We have one empty spot that can just accept and receive and be full of something of what is available. And if I have an empty spot I have an empty spot in my head. I have nothing between my ears. That's not quite the right thing.
Yeah, yeah,
I
yes.
have somewhere for inspiration or, forgiveness to process, or just is like the
Right.
space available.
Mm-hmm.
But don't look at that other closet because it's going to attack you if you open the door, right? It's got so much stuff in it.
It makes me think of in testing. I don't know if you remember this, but there are the test booklets that say this page left intentionally blank.
Yes.
You might need a sign in your house. This cupboard has been left intentionally empty.
Yes.
So don't you fill it up because this is the empty space.
We have like the junk drawer, right?
Uh-huh.
And it's pretty good. I'm really impressed. The kids have been keeping it a little less junky than it used to be. And there's only things in there that belong in there,
Uh-huh.
mostly. But the trick to keeping it feeling clean and organized, we got a big gallon Ziploc bag, and all the pens and pencils are in the bag instead of just in the drawer.
Oh, right.
We're like, what if we have some sort of container for our emotions and things, so just kind of keep them
Yes.
nice and orderly. And I think that this forgiveness gratitude book that you're talking about is a fabulous container for emotions, just like that.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes, I think you're right. And I'll just say one little caveat. I don't think it matters if you do gratitude or forgiveness first, but
I was gonna ask you about that. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I'm trying to remember, my journal's right over there. So I don't, and as I said, I gotten out of the habit of it. But what I have noticed is it almost depends on what kind of mood you're in when you begin. Sometimes for me, if I'm starting out in a bad mood, it's easier for me to be like, oh, well, these are the things I'm crabby about. Let me just forgive these first. And then I end on a high note because I'm feeling gratitude. And then I'll write all my gratitudes. But other days, and I don't even know, I could be in a crabby mood or a great mood, but I start with the gratitude and I feel the flowing. And then I'm feeling magnanimous. I'm feeling expanded. Like you said, I'm feeling better. I'm feeling grounded and safe and secure. And then it's easy to forgive because I have so much I'm thankful for. And so I can forgive myself. I can forgive people. I can forgive the news. I can forgive the weather, whatever. Forgive anything. Broken appliances.
Yes, and we do. I opened a can of peas, and I thought that they were a can of beans. And
Oh no.
This is early in our marriage, like 20 some odd years ago. And I opened the can. It was the first time my husband knew that I talked to inanimate objects. I thought you were beans. He still will say, is that a can of peas? Are you sure?
Oh my gosh, I love it.
We have these emotions, right? We just,
Yes.
and it can be anything, even a can of food.
Yes.
And there's a lot going on in the news. There's a
Yes.
lot that we don't have any control over what's going on in the news. I mean, we can do things and try to make a difference.
Right.
But we need to be able to have forgiveness and find something to have gratitude in that. But I'm glad you brought up the news piece, because that's really wearing us down, I think, a lot.
I agree. And similar with the whole, I only do so many things a day.
Yes.
I'm not disciplined in a ton of areas of my life, but there are a few areas I'm disciplined in. Only do a few things a day. And I only allow myself a certain amount of news watching. And almost never is it at nighttime because, just ruin my sleep right there. Because otherwise I'll lay in bed and think, okay, should I go volunteer? Should I go do this? Should I email so-and-so? Should I message this person? Should I whatever? I'm not doing enough. Or who knows? Or I'll just be thinking, what's going to happen next? What's going to happen next? And that's not good. And so it's like you say, I try to be conscious of, do I feel like I'm making a contribution? Because that's important to me. And part of that is through my work. Part of that is through donations. Part of that is just through treating everyone I meet with as much kindness as I have. And if I can't be kind, I try and stay home because because I don't want to spread unkindness into the world. And oftentimes that means not watching a lot of news. And I'm still okay. I've been okay for many years. And my news consumption is somewhere between 2 to 10 minutes a day, sometimes no news. I've always heard about news that I have to hear about, even with
Right.
it such a small amount. And I still know, like, the issues that matter to me. Well, now there's probably 20 more issues that matter to me because I hear about them in the news, but the things that always matter to me are still the things that matter to me, and none of them are changing that fast. So I
Mhm.
don't I don't need to follow every day where it's going, because I just found, for me, I didn't have the capacity to be worried or sad or get into that place of I'm not doing enough. Well, if I'm not getting much sleep and I have a business and a home and kids, there's only so much time for life outside of that.
Right. And what you're doing at home and your own, like,
Yes.
this is kind of those layers, they ripple out, right?
Yes.
And they affect the people, just like we are talking about earlier. They affect the people around us when we take care of what's at the core. And
Mm-hmm.
if we don't have our own stuff taken care of,
Right.
we're not going to be able to. And I think we can make a difference.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I
Um,
agree so much. And I think too, I I am glad you said this, because it also reminds me of, like, raising children. That's the long range benefit we're all doing if we're parents to the world, of we're doing the best that we can to help support people who are going to go out in the world and, create the kind of world that we want. And that's an investment in time and money and energy and all kinds of things.
yes, yes. But what was it? Winston Churchill, I think, was the
Hmm.
one who said, "The hand that rocks the cradle rules the world," or something like that.
Oh, wow.
Because,
I never got that till now.
yeah,
That's good.
it didn't make sense for a lot of years to me. I was like, "What is he talking about?" But we influence people by
Mhm.
the kindness of that gentle, caring moment. And I'm going to bring it back down to taking care of ourselves, having
Mhm.
those calmer moments, knowing our limits, not pushing beyond it to try and please somebody else. Because really, when we take care of ourselves, we are better able to help the people around us.
Mhm.
And I love everything. I'm looking at the clock. How much time do we have? I think we're getting close to our time. It's been
Yes,
such a
we
great
are.
conversation. So, Rachel, thank you so much for sharing with us about the forgiveness and gratitude practice. I love that. Is there another tool that you go to and you've
Mm.
gotten out of the practice with that? Is there something else that you tend to love or
Mm. Well,
share with us?
yes, I often do this practice out on my back porch because I've talked a little bit about nature. So I try and have a daily nature practice. That's my consistent thing, even if I don't do the forgiveness and the gratitude. Because for me, there's so much wisdom that these creatures, the plants and the insects and the birds have, that it's not the same as people wisdom. Nature moves at its own pace, but I find whatever I need to learn, if I take a few minutes of space and time to pay attention, like we were saying, I think of things that impact my life. So I will look at the trees and I think, all right, these trees got through some storms. They don't have any blankets. They don't have coffee. They don't have any of the things. So I'm like, they got through it. I'm going to draw on that strength. I'm going to feel, hey, I don't have to sit through the storm, the literal storm and the rain and the hail. I can go inside and make coffee and sit with the blankets on my couch and be all cozy. And that's awesome. And
Yes.
so I love all the little things that I learn. And recently, as I said, with my son, we're having our little behavior stuff that we're trying to work through. But yesterday, we're out in the backyard, and the maple trees in the neighborhood are releasing these little seeds. And we were just throwing the seeds in the air and watching them spin. And it's those little moments where I feel we're just being on the moment and enjoying the beauty of this thing. And I'm getting to see him discover this little, some people call them helicopters, the way the
Mhm.
maple seeds spin as you drop them. And it was just, and I was reminding myself, okay, we have some hard things we're going through, but this is the moment I want to think about before I go to sleep at night. This is the thing I want to return to, this moment of beauty where he and I are both connecting with nature, and we're both connecting with nature. We're having this beautiful moment. No one's fighting with each other. And it's all just living life and finding that joy in the moment and discovery. We found this beetle, and the questions he was asking me were cracking me up. Well, because to him, almost all insects are a bee. That's a bee, mom. That's a bee. So I'm starting to teach him the difference. I think he does know that an ant and a spider are different than a bee, but we saw this and he's calling it a bee. And I told him, no, it's a beetle. And so then I'm pointing it out to him, and it's one that it blends in, but it almost looks like it's going into the army battle, because the exoskeleton is all like edges and pokey, and so we're looking at it and talking about it. And then as I'm pointing to it, the bug moves. So then we both are laughing. And those moments, just whenever that has been the hard moments for me, getting outside, sitting with nature and seeing what I see. So when I've lost loved ones, when I have not known what was happening with the relationship, lost a loved one in that way, someone broke up with me, or are we going to break up? When financially things were hard, I could always find a tree, even when we didn't know where the next job was coming from or the next paycheck and all of that. So for me, it's one of those constant things that nourishes.
Mhm.
And I created a program that you get in your email inbox that called Nourish with Nature, that helps other people to create a daily practice of just, it can just be 1 to 2 minutes on your patio or looking out your window if you live in an apartment and you don't have a yard. Or it can be, a lot of times, if I'm driving my kids somewhere to school or preschool, I look at this field near my house and just see, are there any turkey vultures or hawks flying overhead today? Are there clouds in the sky? And it's my little moments of zen and connecting with the world and not thinking about anything else but what do I see today, that energize me. And it's always new, and it makes me think of, and maybe this is why it's easy to do it with my kids, because especially small children, they love finding new things, discovering new things. And for people who love travel, it's like, even if you can't travel, if you take a walk in a neighborhood you've never been in, or take a walk through your own neighborhood. When I walk in my neighborhood, I challenge myself, what can I see that's different that wasn't there a week ago? Is there a tree blooming? Did somebody cut down a bush? Did they plant new flowers? Is there a birdhouse up? Did they paint their fence? All of the little things. And it's just a little game I play in my mind, but it makes me mindful in the moment. And
Mm.
it's fun because it is like this game of, what do I see that's different or that delights me?
Mindful in the moment for delighting ourselves. I love that.
Yeah, me too. I'm glad you're no, but I'm like, I think I should use that again.
Yeah. I wrote it down. I'll send you notes.
Oh, good. Thank you.
I said, this is one of the things with journaling and speaking out loud and things. It makes that
Hmm.
space for more to come, right?
Yes, so true.
Yeah, even as we're talking about it, this is one of my favorite experiences to actually like think something out loud that I think I know, and then it
Hmm.
makes room for another layer of understanding more. It's
Yes. Oh, I
so
agree.
beautiful.
Well, and I want to say briefly, because I have been on podcasts before, but I've never shared so much about my struggles with my son. And I love him, if that's not clear already, but but learning how to I finally gotten to the place where there's enough forgiveness and acceptance that I'm learning how to talk about it and it's not consuming me. But I'm also, like you say, the speaking out loud is teaching me and letting me share, I think, what I've learned, but also how I can see it differently. You've given me thoughts that are helping me see it differently. And it's so good. Back again to this whole letting other people help us, letting other people in. Sometimes it's just the talking and hearing how someone else sees it and reflecting it back that changes everything for us.
Yes. And we don't have to experience it all alone. There's such a major key that I want everyone out there to remember. Our time's just about up. You don't have to be alone. You don't have to do it alone. We're here to help. We're here to enlighten and share each other's burdens. And I'm thinking, you know, what can you do if you live in a city? And that, like, if I was in New York City, where would I find nature? And if I was in Arizona and there's not like beautiful trees, it's, I mean, things there are beautiful. It's a different kind of beauty.
It
But
is.
we can find the stability in the rocks. And some
Yes.
of my favorite nature moments, I haven't ever been to New York and in the city there, but I think there's still a sky there. But
Yes,
some
there
of my,
is.
my favorite
Exactly.
moments are just looking up at the clouds and just trying to, like, maybe there's not stars, but there is a
Yes,
sky.
exactly. Yes. Well, and I also, in my course, Nourish with Nature, I talk about what if you're in a city? I mean, a bowl of fruit or a salad. I mean, we're so used to
Yeah.
seeing it as it's just a salad, but what if you take a moment and look at those leaves or do a still life drawing, even if you're not good at it, of a bowl of fruit on your countertop and look at that and tune in and, oh, how does this banana peel look? I know it sounds silly, but
Finding
sometimes
in the details.
yeah,
Yeah.
sometimes we're so used to walking by a bunch of bananas that we don't think it's pretty amazing that I got bananas on my countertop.
It is. Have you ever think, how did those bananas get there? All the
Yes.
work that has to be done to get a banana to my counter.
Yes. So true.
Oh,
Ah,
well, thank you so much for being here, Rachel. It's rachelstrivelli.com is where people can find you, right? And
yes.
that's where they can get your email,
hmm
nurture nature. Tell me what it's called one more time.
Nourish with Nature.
Nourish with Nature through the email at rachelstrivelli.com. You guys can find me at cheerfulbychoice.com. And I'm so excited to just give you my parting thoughts here. Let's try to have a practice of gratitude and forgiveness, writing things down, getting them out of our head, have a clear, clean out, declutter, something where we can just be and calm, including our schedules, have a time where you can just kind of recharge and refill so you can go out and give your best and give more. We need more. You're worth it. Have some mindful moments and delight yourself. Thanks for being here. Make it a great day because you're worth it.